What's going on, everybody? We're back with Fifth Down Territory. I'm Tyler. There's Louie. Blake's here. We got Shane, too. It's all your hosts. We're back again. There was really no breaking news over the course of the week. There was some news, but I don't think it's all that pressing. So, we can get back into our power rankings, get those done, kind of hit the rest of the stuff that we were going to hit. So, I believe we were right in the middle of it. I think we were pushing on to the Saints. We were talking about Dennis Allen and the Saints. I believe I was definitely down on them. I know I'm down on them. I think we can kind of move. I think Shane. I think you were a little higher on them than consensus, correct?
I would put them at least in the upper half of the league, for only because I believe Derek Carr is an upgrade quarterback, and I believe that the division itself is down. I really like the Saints defense. That's an aspect of their team that normally talks about, like, how good of a defense they have. This is going to be Derek Carr's most complete offensive line he's going to have in front of him. The return of Michael Thomas, even if he's just a slant receiver, is going to help him out as an escape option. I like Juwan Johnson at the tight end position. I love Chris Olave as his number one guy. And obviously, if you add Jamal Williams along with Alvin Kamara and even Kendra Miller from TCU, the draft pick, that's a solid offensive and defensive depth. Again, I ain't high on Dennis Allen as a coach, but I ain't sleeping on the Saints as a potential one. I think they should win the South just based on the looks. I wouldn't sleep on them as not necessarily being a sneaky team that could be potentially one of the better teams in the NFC this year.
I could see that. I mean, the NFC is a bit weaker than the AFC. Their division's definitely in play for them. I don't know. I think there's this perception around the Saints that they still have. It's almost like the Patriots kind of thing. It's like, oh, they got things aren't the same as they were 3-4 years ago. I don't know if they have that consistency still built in them. So I think they're due for a little bit of regression. I think age is a factor getting up there. I do like what they did in the draft. I don't know if this year will be a year that those players kind of show out. Louis, Blake, you guys want to pitch in on this one?
I think Shane hit it pretty well. I think they're the best team in that bad division. When I went through and did my power rankings, I did not have them in the top half. Because I was kind of looking at the NFL as a whole. I think they will be a playoff team because of where their division is. So I guess depending on what your criteria is for ranking teams, if you're ranking the top 14 teams as teams you see in the playoffs, and there are a lot of different ways to look at the power rankings. When I was looking at mine, I was looking at what do I think these teams are NFL wide right now entering the preseason. And I had the Eagles ranked higher than the Cowboys on my power rankings. However, I honestly think this is the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East this year. Even though I have even though I think I have the Eagles ranked a little bit higher, it's just kind of where they're at going into this season, and the Saints obviously got a lot better bringing in Derek Carr. I think they have the best quarterback in a weak division.
Feel that. Look, I think you were on my side of things, or was I the lone trooper on the Saints here?
No, so looking at our power rankings, I'm the lowest on the Saints. I have them one spot lower than you do, Tyler. My biggest thing is I watched the Saints team in person last year. I watched the Bucs Saints game in New Orleans. I wasn't wowed. Really, defensive performance was fine. Offensive line really looked questionable. I know they were without their first round pick last year. I can't remember what his name was. He's supposed to be a big mauler in the run game. I can't remember who that was.
Kevin Jenkins.
I just can't really put any faith in Derek Carr. I thought his decision making was really bad last year. And I know the Raiders line is probably one of the worst in the league, so he's getting a big upgrade coming to the Saints. I'm just not bought in on Dennis Allen. I don't know that he's necessarily ever going to be able to be the guy that builds a good offense around the pieces and instead he just has his offensive style that he constantly tries to reuse year over year. So if you're just doing like a head-to-head matchup, which is kind of what I would do, all the guys that are above them, like I have the Falcons ranked up above them a couple spots, and that's sheerly just coaching. Like I like Arthur Smith. I like what he did with what he had last year. I thought it was really creative, and they only got better. So,
I feel like the NFC East and NFC South was a tough division to rank. Honestly, I kind of have the Saints, Panthers, and Falcons all close together. The only thing I felt like was kind of clear and obvious was that the Bucks were the lowest team. At least. But you can make arguments for each team. The Falcons have a really good offensive line, really, and now have Bijan and Algier to run with. Those are two really good young
and
backs.
Patterson. Patterson's still there.
Yeah. I think unequivocally that is going to be the most athletic offense that is fielded this year. I love the athletic style of every lineman almost on that team. I think Bijan is going to be one of the most athletic players. Kyle Pitts is an absolute freak of nature. Like, it's just matchup nightmare stuff. If they can get the scheme right and Ritter plays even like tangibly well, like just enough that you're not immediately benching him, I think that's a 6 to 7 win team, and I think Ritter will settle in and they'll play around it.
I thought they were a prime spot, the Falcons were for Lamar before everything kind of went off, because what are you gonna do then? Like, you really don't. Your hands are completely tied at that point with all those weapons on that offense. I think another kind of nice inflection point here. Actually, here's one that me and Louie agree on again, and Shane and Bahuki agree on again. It's the Chargers. I think we all kind of have them higher than what Pro Football Network has them. I think they have them 15. I think me and Louie have them 13. I would have them higher on this list. I have zero faith in that coach. Stanley couldn't coach his way out of a paper bag, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. I don't coach football currently, so it's just, you look at the talent on that team. It doesn't make any sense why they just don't perform better. It all breaks down once you look at it to coaching to me, and they didn't change that.
Not very good with the situational football.
No.
When you get down to like those, like when you're in those close games and there's in those like those like plays like you need to pick up this first down and you need to make this fourth down call. They lose a lot of those games, and that's the difference between a non-playoff team, playoff team, championship team. And I agree. They have all that talent. They've also had a lot of issues with injuries over the last few years, and hopefully like I feel like that stuff kind of runs in cycles. So hopefully they stay healthy this year. I think that's what people have been saying about the Chargers for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, honestly.
Coaching aside, the Chargers quietly have developed over the last 2 years one of the best offensive lines in football, maybe in the AFC. And a lot of times you get into the playoffs, that offensive line skill is what takes you the furthest. We saw what happened with Patrick Mahomes when he was the Super Bowl, when he had the starters. Both his tackles were out. The very next year, they gave him 5 new starters, and now he's got one of the better offensive lines in the game. And the Chargers, I had them ranked 10th on my power rankings. The only thing that holds them back is all experience, good experience. This past year's playoff loss, I mean, it wasn't just a loss. It was a historic loss. They were up 27-0 at halftime. 28-0 at halftime. And this is going to carry the perception of their quarterback. I'm blanking on his name, Justin Herbert, for his career. There are quarterbacks like him that have a lot of skill. My team has a quarterback that I believe has a lot of skill, but the success of the team is going to dictate how people see him. If he doesn't make an MVP, if he doesn't win a playoff game, people are going to see him as a underachieving type of quarterback, which is unfair, even though It is fair and it ain't fair because it's fair because he has playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. He has I think 3 All-Pros on the defensive side of the ball. He's got a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback coach, and they play and they ain't gonna win the West, but they're very much gonna be a team that's gonna like fight for that fifth seeded wild card spot. But even then, a lot of times we favored against whoever they play against in the playoffs because they're such a deep team. But too often we see these teams that are loaded with talent. They decimate in about 2-3 years after their full completion, just because they were never fully reach the potential. And the Chargers to me seem like a team that could potentially be one of those types of teams down the line.
Ooh, I think you're the last person to weigh in on this one.
Yeah, to me, I think it's a big coaching thing. I just don't like the way they diversify their roster on offense. Like every single one of their 3 key receivers right now feels like the same kind of receiver to me. I know somebody is going to get on me about Quentin Johnston's tape, and I'll be honest, I'm very unfamiliar with it. But from a statistical point of view, right, all of those guys are 6'2" and above. I think Johnston 6'2", Allen 6'2", Williams is 6'4". So yeah, you're playing the big body 50-50 ball, and Herbert's good at that. But not everything has to be specific to like one play that you want. I don't like that they held on to Eckler. I know a lot of people like him because of fantasy. I just don't think he benefits from that line. I agree with Shane. I think they have a great line. He's benefited a lot from like a little dump screen and let them push to the second level and really open windows. And then the defense made no sense to me last year. On paper, it should have been one of the best in the league, and it was just atrociously bad, especially in the second half of the season. So I think a lot of the key players on that defensive side of the ball at maybe over the hump is what they have to be worried about. Like, is Khalil Mack ever going to return to form? He didn't look good last year. Joey Bosa's been a little injury riddled the last couple of years, so we'll have to see if he can move past that. J.C. Jackson, and their star safety, who's name I don't know.
Derwin James.
Yeah, Derwin James, right? Those are 4 superstar caliber players, and I don't think any of them put together a really good season last year, except for maybe Bosa. So I think they have to figure that out, and I just don't love – I know they needed receiver help. I didn't like the kind of receiver help they took in the first round this year.
I would have preferred Zay Flowers for them, like one of those field stretcher, faster type of players, twitchier. Johnson, he definitely he reminds me of Mike Williams, kind of the way that he plays, body control, catches with his hands. He's good after the catch though.
As a yak guy, yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's who Eckler is. So if you're taking that yak identity and giving it to a 6'2" receiver, what do you need your 5'8" running back for that really doesn't get that many yards after contact? Like,
unless he's on the 5-yard line, that dude he smells the goal line. I will say that. Like he's an oddly like powerful goal line back for no reason. Like I don't know why, but he's just like, yeah, that's mine. Give that to me inside 5. All right, I think we talked enough Chargers there. We can move on. So on PFN here, they have Carolina ranked 16. I don't believe any one of us have that close. I could start with that. Like, I do think Carolina's in the, 20th, in like that 23rd range, like between there. I like Bryce Young. I think he's gonna have a hot start. I don't know about him long term. I think they did enough sneaky things on offense to kind of propel him at least for this year. I mean, you have Thielen, you have DJ Chark. They got Hayden Hurst, who's a nice quarterback blanket. He doesn't offer a ton in the way of athleticism, but he's a sure-handed guy who helps your quarterback out. Miles Sanders is a big pickup. Thielen, and then they got Jonathan Mingo. I think that in its sum it's not a great core. It's a decent core. I would say it has a chance to be one of those underrated type of things that could offer sneaky value if like Chark and Thielen stay healthy. That they both have shown at parts of their career they can be pretty talented. So and Carolina's always had a pretty decent defense. I think since they fired Matt Ja Rule, they kind of tightened up and started playing to their potential on defense because they're another one of those teams. Brian Burns, Jeremy Chin, who's their cornerback that got hurt? J.C. Horn. Yep. I think that's another group. They drafted Derek Brown too, another really high, like blue chip guy, high draft pick. All those guys are good picks, so I think they could be a sneaky team. I don't think they're gonna win the division or anything, but they should have 7 or 8 wins. So they should be competitive.
The Panthers have one of the highest ranked off seasons across amongst a lot of NFL circles in terms of free agency and the draft, and it all starts really with Bryce Young. You have to have a quarterback, and that's the reason I can't rank him so high, just because even though I thought he was I don't know if you want to call him the best pro prospect, but he was the right pro prospect for what they needed. And you're right. They went out and got in weapons. They got Miles Sanders, a really good running back. They got Adam Thielen, a really underrated sign-in, because a lot of times your rookie quarterbacks, when they're in trouble, they look for their tight end and their slot receiver. Yep. That's what they got. Hayden Hurst. Quietly, the Panthers, after having historically ranked as one of the worst offensive lines 3 years ago, they're starting 5 of Ikem Ekwonu, Brady Christensen, Bradley Bozeman, Austin Corbett, and Taylor Moton on the offensive line has become one of the better ones in the NFC. I think Detroit has the best offensive line in the NFC for what it's worth. And like you talked about, they have one of the more complete defensive rosters they don't really talk about. You didn't mention Marquise Haynes, one of the versatile defenders, Dante Jackson, a ball hawk. They signed Von Bell from Cincinnati, who's a really stout defender as a box safety. And the return of J.C. Horn is huge. And so I respectfully, just because I saw the moves they made, I put them at 24, not because I disrespect them, but because I can't put them higher than that just yet until I see how Bryce Young looks on the field. I have this
need to see more.
I have this rule about rookie quarterbacks that even if their roster looks great and I like their coach, I will see how that works. But I have to see how Bryce Young looks with all these players, because he has everything he needs. He's got a good running game. He's got receivers. He's got a tight end. He has a good offensive line that will keep him upright. But I got to see it all put on the field before I can move them any higher.
Louis, I think you have them the highest, honestly.
I do. I think defense is top 5 in the league. I'm probably one of the sole people who believes that. But, I mean, you have to think about back to some of these offseason storylines. Brian Burns was rumored to be on the trade block there for a little bit last season. People were sending 2 first-round packages for that.
They weren't letting him go, yeah.
I mean, he is an absolute wrecker on that line. I think, like Shane was saying, I love the offensive line moves they've made. Icky was one of my favorite picks last draft. Great. I liked him more than whoever the big boy was out of Alabama that
year. Evan Neal.
So I agree. I like the tight end and wide receiver move in Thielen. I don't love Chark being kind of like your go guy. I mean, he's like your big play person, I think. I don't necessarily think you can trust that to a rookie. That's a little worrisome to me. I like Sanders as a back. So overall, I think if Bryce Young just takes care of the ball, I think you can see a pretty good season out of them. So I have them at 19, just because I think the upside alone on some of that stuff. And I like Reich. I'll say that. He played in Indianapolis, division rivals. I have watched Frank Reich coach games forever. And I hated him when he was on the Colts, but now that he's gone, I can admit that he was a good coach.
Former Bill.
One thing you can respect on Frank Reich is that he a lot in Philly and in Indianapolis. Oftentimes he had a change of different quarterback. It felt like every couple games, every couple years. He knows how to adapt his scheme to whatever quarterback's playing.
Yes, so that's exactly what I like about him. I think that's the perfect situation for Bryce Young. I personally liked Anthony Richardson to the Panthers more before preseason, because I just thought he would maximize that if they weren't in a win now window, which I don't think they are. But I think you're going to see one of the strongest quarterback seasons out of Bryce Young, not because he was the number 1 overall pick, but because of the situation he landed in.
They also have Jim Codwell, Josh McCown, and somebody else in that quarterback coaching room. The quarterback friendly coaches who have all been known to help with development and be good mentors to quarterbacks. So I think that matters. I think they've built a solid kind of trust around Young. So that again, I like Richardson to Carolina as well because of that. I thought that they may have been the best team to maximize his skill set with that coaching staff. Duke, you got anything to add on the Panthers here?
Yeah, you guys had a bunch of good points there. I liked the last one you made about the coaching staff. Jim Caldwell, honestly, I like a lot. I think he still could be a head coach in the league. And yeah, Frank Reich and Josh McCown, both histories as backup quarterbacks and good spot starters. Usually those turn out to be the best coaches, better than starting quarterbacks. And yeah, I feel like our rankings are kind of similar, like a little bit jumbled around the NFC South teams. I guess me and Shane kind of see like the Saints is like the top dog, but I wouldn't be that surprised if the Panthers or the Falcons surprised people for lack
I think the Panthers are like a season ahead of the Falcons. I really do. I like the Panthers. I don't just like their starters better. I like some of their depth pieces that don't even get mentioned better than the Falcons. The Falcons, I think, are starter heavy. I don't like a lot of their depth.
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, like I said though, like they are very top heavy in the sense that you do have three of maybe the most athletic players out of the last three drafts on your offense. I mean, that at some point with Arthur Smith, and his history of being a really creative offensive coach, I think that I don't know if it gives them an edge. I do agree with you. They're an off season ahead. They have the quarterback. They have the depth pieces. They may not have the top tier skill player on offense yet, but everything else is kind of there for them. And the Falcons, you got to have a quarterback. So your quarterback away, you're down the list for me. I'm like, that's just kind of how that is.
Yeah, I
It's almost interesting. It'll be like a study in opposites for those two teams, because the Panthers have, right, the number one overall quarterback from this draft, highly touted, very little draft capital invested in the weapons around him, good line. Falcons have good line, really low pick quarterback, but really high investment in all the weapons that he's going to be throwing to. Right. Playing in the same division, they're going to have a really comparable schedule. So I think it'll be interesting to see at the end of that, do we overvalue the quarterback position a little more maybe? I know it's like the most important position in football.
I don't think it's overvalued. I think people under-scout.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point. So we'll see if the Falcons can make this work with Ritter. And if they can, who knows? That could change the way some teams are viewing how do we put together a competing roster. Also, if Kyle Pitts doesn't have a resurgent season, I think that's really going to hurt Bauer's draft stock next season, but way too early to talk about that.
I like that little tidbit, though. Moving right down the list here. So Minnesota, they have 17. Bahuki, I think you have Minnesota a little bit higher. You want to talk about the Vikings?
Yeah, I have them a little bit higher. But they're a team I'm on the watch for this year because again, my rankings are based on where these teams are based off of last season and what they have added / lost in the offseason. They haven't played any games or put anything on film yet, but I'm also a math guy and I like numbers and I like seeing patterns, and each season is individual, but patterns exist from season to season. And for whatever reason, it has been a pattern of the Minnesota Vikings to go from being a 10 to 13 win team to a 7 or 9 win team year between year. And I don't understand it. And and they were considered the most fraudulent team in football last year, and they had a lot of balls bounce their way. And law of averages says that's probably not going to happen again. And I don't know. There was rumors about them shopping Kirk Cousins, and I don't really know what's going on with their culture over there. They still have Dalvin Cook as it stands. I don't know if it'll be like that on June 1st. But so that's kind of where I have them at now, but they're a team that I expect to slide down. Yeah, my rankings are, they change throughout the year. And some of those NFC South teams that we were just talking about are down here right now, but I'm expecting to go up. Is basically what I would say. Is they did make it to the playoffs last year, and they did win a lot of games. But I don't have a ton of faith in the Vikings this year. To win their division, I think that Detroit is biting right at their kneecaps.
I feel that. Louis, I think you have kind of similar ranking to the Vikings as Blake. I think he's at 14.
Yeah. To me, the Vikings are just they're hot or they're cold. I think their comeback win last year against the Colts was a really good indication of what this team can do when the light is green and the gas is going. But then obviously nobody had confidence that they were going to beat the Giants, which honestly weren't a super good team last year. They were just scrappy. So I think O'Connell's really going to have to figure out a better offensive scheme, especially investing that first round pick not on the defensive line, which is bad, but on the receiving core when you already have arguably the best receiver in the league. And I know you lost Adam Thielen. I thought there were some low-cost free agents they could have brought in there instead, Jacoby Myers or Juju Smith-Schuster, somebody like that, a bit of that mid-range tier who could have helped round that out without needing to be first-round capital. So, and it's just Kirk Cousins at the end of the day, Nothing really else.
I definitely agree there. I mean, on my thing here, I think I have them the lowest out of the group. I have them at 24th. My little note here is just Kirk Cousins regression. It's coming. It's creeping down the line for me. I see it every time he's in a primetime game, and you can't have the best wide receiver in football, T.J. Hawkinson, a Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and all these weapons, and just shrink when it comes to playing the New York Giants. I don't know. Like, again, scrappy team. I like the Giants. I like Dayball. I think they're going to be a really good team this year. Weren't a really good team last year, but they were scrappy and they hung in games. And like you said, everybody knew they were going to beat the Vikings. That was the worst kept secret in the NFL, it seemed like. So, and on top of that, if their offense does stall, that they have so many secondary issues. Like, I think they're still starting Harrison Smith, who he's just lost a couple of steps at this point. I think he's 34, I believe, at this point. They haven't really developed anything good in their secondary. They have who's their best pass rusher? Is Daniil Hunter still there? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yes.
He can get after it at times when he's in the rhythm, but again, they have a lot of issues in their secondary. Shane, I think you're kind of in line with my thinking here, aren't you?
Well, I ranked them at 19th, and it ain't because of the offense. I think offensively that's with their strength, but I think they needed help on the offensive line. They needed an upgraded guard play, in my opinion. I liked Addison, their first round pick, just as from perspective that I had him as my top ranked receiver in the draft. I thought he was the best, most pro ready receiver, but they didn't need him. I felt like they could have waited at least till round 3 to touch receiver because they needed help on the offensive line. They needed help with the secondary. They drafted Mekhi Blackman out of USC, who I like, but I like him more as a 4th or 5th option this year 1 as a developmental player later on. right now he's right now they're listed as the fourth cornerback, but with who they got right now, Byron Murphy, Andrew Booth, as their starters, Blackman might be having to play a little bit sooner than expected. Lewis Steen coming back from injury. We'll see how he looks. He might be the eventual Harrison Smith takeover. I think the one thing that saved their offseason, it was an underrated sign. The one we talked about was Marcus Davenport from the Saints. A 1-year deal. But even though he wasn't the sack master that Cam Jordan was, he was constantly the pressure carrier, the guy that was obviously pushing on that side and forcing the quarterbacks over to Cam Jordan's side. I really wish they would have brought back Dalvin Tomlinson for run defense because they were terrible against the run. I think they have a lot of faith in Kyrus Tonga as the new nose tackle because he showed a little bit as a rotational guy there. I think he's slated to start. Him and Harrison Phillips are going to be their primary interior defensive tackles, which is fine, but their depth behind that position is really lacking. They lack a lot of depth in a lot of key areas. They have quality starters in most spots, but there's still a lot of I wouldn't call them holes. I call them question marks because we've seen highs and lows from someone like a Cameron Bynum. Will Jordan Hicks, the linebacker, will he be healthy? We don't know. And like I said, I question both guards for him on the interior offensive line, and I could easily see him going from first in the North to worst. I really do because I see the other three teams on the rise.
Mm-hmm. I definitely feel that. All right, we got Cleveland here, Cleveland and Pittsburgh, two AFC North teams. I think we can kind of maybe do these back to back. So, Shane, you went last time. You want to just start off with like?
Absolutely, I do. Okay, so the Browns have them ranked right behind the Vikings just because they invested so much money and so much capital into Deshaun Watson. And what we saw at the end of the season was pathetic. We saw a guy who hadn't played in 2 years look like a guy who hadn't played in 2 years. And so everything they have invested in him needs to work out because Amari Cooper, he's their best receiver. They have someone like Donovan Peoples-Jones as the X. They have a good offensive line. They really do. And they stole DeJuan Jones, who I think is a really good developmental player in the 4th round. Some people have first-round grade on him. Off-field issues aside, he has a lot of talent. I think he's a little heavy-footed, but I do like his ability with those long arms, that long-reach and pass protection. Now, the Packers, I don't know how – not the Packers, sorry. The Steelers, I don't know how y'all feel about the Steelers. The Steelers, I think, are a team that's slightly on the rise right now also because in the similar way that Louis talked about the Falcons, where they have like this really athletic roster around them, the Packers went out and fixed the offensive line in 2 years, and they got Jones from Broderick Jones from Georgia as their left tackle. They signed Isaac Seumalo from the Eagles. They traded for Robinson from the Rams, even though he's going to be their third option, but still an upgrade as a third option receiver alongside George
Johnson and Pickens.
Yeah, Johnson and Pickens. Thank you. I forgot.
Pat Freiermuth, good tight end.
Freiermuth, great tight end. And the defense last year continues to be one of the best defenses in the league. And they're getting back TJ Watt, who I think, assuming his rehab went well, which we should, they're going to be just fine. And obviously, I consider Mike Tomlin to be one of the elite coaches in the league. This team right now, for me, is ranked 17th, but this team very much could be a playoff type team, dependent on what year 2 Kenny Pickett looks like. Similarly to how Louis pointed out about Desmond Ridder with Atlanta.
Yeah, I think I have the Steelers the highest out of the whole group. I have them 12th. The additions of Isaac Seumalo and Broderick Jones really can't be understated enough.
Huge.
The Steelers want to run the football. They want to have Najee Harris pounding the rock. That's why they drafted him 21 overall a couple years ago. I think that they have an awful offensive line, and a lot of people gave Najee the slack for it. And it wasn't really his fault. He was doing everything he can, but 2 or 3 people were hitting him before he got to the line of scrimmage. So I think when you beef up your interior, and I think Seumalo plays right guard. I think that Jones also plays right tackle. So you take that right side of your offensive line, you just throw 2 absolute refrigerators over there. That helps that. Robinson is a great. He should be a great third option. He stays healthy. He doesn't have to be this savior. He really should be the dude that you're just kind of being like, oh wow, we left him open. That's kind of beat. And TJ Watt, yeah, if he can stay healthy, that he's one of the most disruptive players in football. Micah or Minka Fitzpatrick is just a ball hawking safety who can tackle as well. He kind of does it all: tackle, cover, play in the box, play free safety. He does everything. And then Joey Porter. Joey Porter is a lockdown cornerback. I think
Yeah,
he was my third
Love that he plays
third rated cornerback. Yeah,
that
gets to
was
play for his
one
dad's
of the
team.
skills of the draft.
Yeah.
I think they have a great coaching staff. They had a really solid team before. They were they were a tiebreaker away from getting into the playoffs last year, and they've had an excellent free agency and draft. I don't understand where you know what I mean. They play a tough division. The AFC is loaded, but like we saw them win 9 games last year with the worst team essentially. So.
They got my top rated
you
tackle and my top rated cornerback. So they had maybe I had them as ranked as the best draft. Yeah. I think y'all agree they had like the best draft. I thought so. Like they got Darnell Washington in the third, and even if he's just a tight end too alongside Freiermuth, that's gonna
extra tackle.
Right. That's gonna improve your running game.
Like that dude's huge too. Like if he lines up on your right side in line, and you have those 3 dudes, you run the power to the right. Najee should be able to get going 4 or 5 yards of space and get that engine revving. And he's a truck with space.
Jaylen Warren
too. Then you get the speed back in there. So yeah, Bahuki, I think you have them 17. So you're kind of in line with PFN. Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, we're talking about both the Browns and the Steelers right now. It's kind of becoming a little more Steelers talk. I feel like they're like different sides of the same coin. Like the Browns are a team like that's been bad and is supposed to be good, and the Steelers are a good team that's supposed to be bad, but it just won't happen either way. The Steelers will not die, and the Browns will not take that next step, no matter what.
Almost did.
It's close.
Like, yeah, and you look at that Browns roster, and on paper, they look like such a good team. And I liked what Shane said. It looked like Deshaun Watson looks like a quarterback who hadn't played in 2 years. He was rusty, and we'll see. He's got a full off season now and a little more familiarity. Big prove it year for the Browns. And yeah, the Steelers have had one of the best off seasons in the NFL, bar none. And Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season, all things considered, and that's one of the most amazing NFL stats out there. Honestly, that's so hard to do in this league, especially. Yeah. Him and Sean McDermott both went to William and Mary together. Mike Tomlin was a wide receiver. Sean McDermott was a defensive back. They used to practice against each other every single day.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're cut from the same cloth. So I got nothing. I got nothing but respect for Mike Tomlin. Yeah, William and Mary, same college as Rodney Harrison and other Buffalo Bills great. Mark Kelso was one of my high school coaches. He was on the 90 Super Bowl teams, and yeah, another William and Mary guy. A lot of great players, but even better minds that come out of that program.
Nice.
For sure.
So yeah, I want to say I have the Browns at 15 right now. They're also a Lake Erie team like Buffalo, and when they lost their team for a few years, and in Buffalo they actually had a section for Browns fans that were kind of displaced after they had lost their team. So part of me wants to root for them. I kind of lost a little bit of that with the Deshaun Watson move, but I would not. Yeah. So right now I have the Browns here, and I have the Steelers right here because of what it looks like on paper. But kind of like I said and I had the Vikings up here. Would not be a surprise to see the Vikings go this way. Would not be surprised to see the Steelers go this way.
How ironic would it be if Baker Mayfield turns into have a second year coming or a second career coming in Tampa with what they got going on there, because they have a good team in Tampa.
Tampa Bay.
and Deshaun and the Browns just nosedive. What happens? Is it like another curse on Cleveland? Because they finally have their quarterback in Baker. He hurts his shoulder, and they're like, oh, we can upgrade. But then all
Yep.
of a sudden, Baker finds like this disrespect, the same disrespect he had from going to Texas Tech to Oklahoma. And he just finds reasons for people to disrespect him, I guess. And he balls out there. God, wouldn't that be ironic?
I
It's not
could see it.
possible. We'll see. I have the Bucks rated as one of the lowest teams this
Me
year.
too.
And but I've been wrong before. I love Baker and his moxie, and he was starting to show something last year. And I don't know, Jimmy Haslam probably have to sell the team at that point. He won't. He
Right.
won't. He's a billionaire. I mean, he doesn't play by the same rules as everyone else.
Louis, what you got on the Browns and the Steelers here?
I think the Browns made all the right moves in the offseason. I think what they suffer from is a lack of identity. I thought that's what it was last year. You have an incredible line and an incredible back in Nick Chubb, and yet so many times it felt like they were forcing the throw because they had to justify the Deshaun Watson trade. And he just didn't look ready to play. I thought they made a big mistake benching Brissett mid-season to rush Watson back in and just to get play that nobody really wanted to see. The receiving core is okay. I think it got better with the addition of Elijah Moore. I liked that trade. Their defense is still questionable to me. Their run defense was really bad last year, but they brought in Dalvin Tomlinson, who I think will help that quite a bit, but they let Clowney walk. He was historically a very good run defender. He didn't play that way on the Browns team. And so part of me thinks it's just coaching scheme. I don't know if they really coach through tackles. I'm not as high on their secondary as some people. I know a lot of people like Greg Newsome and is Greedy Williams still on that secondary? I don't know. There's a lot of guys back there that people view as like underrated. I think they're appropriately rated. So for me, I have the Browns as my 18th ranked team, right underneath the Steelers at 17. I don't trust Stefanski. I don't think the team is going into the season on a good note. Deshaun has still been in court this offseason. Regardless of your opinion on him, it's just hard to rally behind somebody that's such a polarizing figure. And so I think their locker room is really going to need to come together and really block out the noise if they want to make a good run this year. As for the Steelers, I think this is the lowest they'll be on my power rankings all year. You know, bury Mike Tomlin in a shallow grave because he's always going to come back. I think we really just underestimate how great of a coach he is. I loved Blake's points. You know, he comes from a college with just a program that just develops minds. He is incredibly smart. I think this is the best roster he's probably had in the last 5 years. And they've always been right there on the cusp either way. I think this year you could see them really make a play. And I'd actually like them to take the North if the Bengals didn't play in the same division. I think easily you could make the argument as the season goes on, they may be better than the Ravens. I think they fixed a lot of the holes on their defense, and I think their offense, fixing that line. I really liked the tight end they took in the third round. I think he's an absolute monster who's going to add a ton of blocking to that run game, which is going to open up Najee. All the right moves to me. No complaints. I had their draft as the highest. It was, I think, the only A+ I would have given. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you there. Like I said, I have them the highest.
I had Joey Porter as one of my. I think he was my second corner. So
I had Gonzalez, Witherspoon, then Porter, then Banks, then Forbes. Personally, that was my vibe.
Yeah, and I could easily see you making the argument for one Shane just off of sheer traits. I mean, he's going to be on dudes like a cape. You're not getting away from that length. I think he's got really underrated footwork. So I think he needs to work a little bit on his physicality. Sometimes you almost see too much, like he gets a little too handsy sometimes. But I think part of that is just you don't necessarily always coach a corner who can reach a dude from halfway across the field. So I think Tomlin's going to get the most out of him.
He's more physical than he is a good tackler. Let's just be real. He's physical. He always a good tackler.
Yeah. He's physical too early, I think is the problem. Like you get physical before the ball and then
That's
not
fair.
enough after the ball.
That's fair.
So if they can coach that up, I mean, all my issues with Porter are coachable. There's no trait concerns. There's no work concerns. I think him falling to the second round was like the best thing that could have happened for the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to play with a chip. I think he'll kind of establish himself as a really good corner in the league.
I think it's a good thing as a player too, if you're a difference maker, because you get to that second contract quicker.
I definitely agree there. So we're doing that thing where we've kind of run a little bit long on this part of the power rankings. So we're gonna go from 20 here to like 24. I'm gonna rattle off these 5 teams. We can kind of talk about them in unison there. So PFN has 20 for the Patriots, 21 for the Commanders, 22 for the Bears, and Indy is 23. We'll just do those 4 for now. So I mean, I can go first on the Pats. I have them a little higher than 20. I mean, I have them here at 17. I think their defense actually got better than it was last year. It was an underrated defense. They had some good pieces, good pass rush. Missing some size on the back end, but they got that with Gonzalez. I think they got some more speed in the linebacking room with his name Mapu, and Keon White was a top 35 player on my board. They got him at 46. So again, the value there was
Good
great.
Value.
They got marginal offensive upgrades, but I think their offense in a whole is going to be better functioning because they actually have a coordinator now who like understands what an offense does and what it needs to function and live. Because I think their collection of talent, it's not bottom of the league, it's not top of the league, it's right there in the middle. I would say I think they have talent there. They have weapons that they can use in their disposal. So it all really comes down to if the players on the team buy back into the mantra and kind of get back to it. I have them a couple of spots higher. Then the Commanders, I definitely don't have them that high. I have them at 27. I think I didn't love their draft. I thought they reached on Forbes a little bit. They didn't really make any impact signings. They kind of kept a lot of their own guys, didn't change the quarterback. They have a good offensive pieces. I would trade theirs for mine from the Patriots in an absolute heartbeat, but I don't see them going anywhere with Jacoby Brissett and Sam Howell at this current point in time. The Bears I have a little higher at 19. I'm a Justin Fields fan. You give him line protection, you give him a couple of weapons. That will negate a bad defense slightly in some games, not completely. They're not going to make the full leap this year, but I think that offense is going to show you something, and it's going to be fun to watch. And then Indy, I have Indy right next to the Bears here. Again, I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch for the first time in a long time. I think that not that they didn't have exciting players. It was Phillip Rivers, it was Matt Ryan, it was Carson Wentz. Now it's Anthony Richardson. It's like, okay, now we could it's Shane Steichen. Like he should be bringing like an Eagles style, Raven style, like zone read option, West Coast, like a fancier style offense to a team with solid skill players. So I think I'm higher on all of these teams a little bit than what PFF ranks. Lou, you wanna start here?
Sure. I have the Patriots right at 20. I think offensive identity is a big problem for them, and you have to pull the trigger one way or the other on Mac Jones. We can't play this game where he gets subbed out for. Okay, tell me the name of their backup.
Bailey Zappi.
Bailey Zappi. Thank you. Fun fact: I watched Bailey Zappi in high school. We grew up in the same town, so Bailey Zappi believer. And he was good. I was like, this kid is good. So glad to see it panned out for him. I think Belichick obviously has his reputation, and he's a locked Hall of Famer himself, obviously. I'd like to see him adapt a little bit more, like just a little bit more modern approach to the game would help their team a lot. I'm way lower on the Commanders than this. Commanders are my 30th ranked team. I do not like Ron Rivera as a coach for this team. I think they, again, have no identity. I don't like their offensive line, really. It doesn't wow me. I'm a big Terry McLaurin guy. Don't love their running back room. I just feel like it's all like very middle of the pack to me. And I think with Sam Howell back there, I just think you'll see I think they'll be close. They'll be in games, but they're not closers. I think that's going to hurt them. I'm a little higher on the Colts here. I have the Colts at 21. I think inexperience is going to be a big thing here. But I would not want to be the guy that has to guard Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in the same backfield. Like, even if you completely remove passing from that equation, I still wouldn't want to be the linebacker that had to do that assignment. It's just a lot of speed. It's a lot of
500 pounds combined.
And you're going to see a lot of stuff designed for him like it was designed for Hurts. I'm anticipating a very similar season. Anthony Richardson as Jalen Hurts' first year. Not a lot of good throwing options. I'm not as high on Michael Pittman as some people are. He's just very on or off. Like, you want consistency in a wide receiver one, and I don't think he always has that. And their line definitely has some question marks. And as for the Bears, I'm quite a bit lower on them just because defense concerns me, and I just have to see the Justin Fields passing thing for myself. We've talked about it all offseason. I don't think he's a bust. I don't think he's going to be a bust. But I watched some of his games last year, and I mean, we're talking throws right to safeties, like stuff you would see if you went and played pickup in your local area, like just misreading defenses. So that has to change. And then once right, you see some consistency 3 games in a row where he doesn't make a throw right to a defender, you can be like, okay, we're talking about a consistent passing game from Fields that's going to elevate this offense.
Word. Shane, you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I'm a little lower on all 4 of those teams in terms of my rankings. I think the only one that I had an apt ranking of was the Patriots, who I had at 21, and that's mostly because of Belichick, just because I think he has really good in-game adaptability. I think it's the scheme that you're talking about in terms of adaptability, in terms of overall. I don't know which Mac Jones we're going to get. If we're going to get rookie Mac Jones, that's good enough, really, to make some noise in the playoffs, and Bill Belichick knows how to make damage in the playoffs. They actually have really good defense. I like their offensive line. I think the Patriots have a quietly good offensive line. No one really acknowledges it because the Patriots are, no offense, Tyler, kind of an unsexy team. But I
for 20 years. It's okay.
Yeah. The Commanders I had ranked 23rd. I'm a little higher on Sam Howell, but I was higher on him last year coming out of the draft anyway. I like the pieces he has in terms of the offensive weapons. I like Dotson. I like McLaurin. I like some of their offensive linemen. Some I have questions about. I don't know how much Charles Leno has left as a tackle. We'll see about that. I don't know if Sam Cosmi's going to really make it as a guard. Again, we'll see. I like a defensive line. I don't. Chase Young's future with them is in question. I like some of their backs. I like. I like the Cam, the safety. I can't remember his name.
Cam Sutton.
Cam Sutton. No,
yeah.
not Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton was a cornerback who played
a wide receiver.
Anyway, I'm a little lower on the Commanders. I can't remember names. The Colts have ranked 25th just because I like their roster and I like the division they're in terms of who they're playing against. Right now, I think they're fighting for second place behind Jacksonville. I think Houston is an on-the-rise team also. But I like Houston's roster a little more, but I think I like the quarterback the Colts have a little more. I think I was higher on Richardson than I was C.J. Stroud. I think C.J. Stroud's a better thrower. I think Richardson's a better player, if that makes sense. It's just from what I see. The Bears I have ranked 26th. I think Justin Fields is on the rise. I love them signing Nate Davis and going out and drafting Darnell Wright because now their offensive line is actually really, really good. Tevin Jenkins is the right guard. My friend Ian Cummins, who actually works for Pro Football Network, got confirmation that they are planning on switching Cody Whitehair back to center, which would be huge. Braxton Jones was a find for them in the 7th round. He's going to be their starting left tackle. They have 3 serviceable receivers. Their defense is still kind of sus. They have a lot of on-the-rise guys. I still like Jalen Jones and Jaquan Brisker, but they have a lot. Aside from them, there's a lot of we'll see kind of players. And if Justin Fields can continue to progress like we saw towards the second half of last season, I don't know if to be a playoff team necessarily, but I could totally see them being, an 8-win team, a 9-win team, a team that fights for a playoff spot.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Bahuki, I think you're gonna round us out on.
Time's ticking. I'll try and do this Spark Notes version. So we got Bears, we got Patriots, we got Commanders, we got
Commanders and
Colts.
Colts.
Yep.
All right. Commanders at the bottom of that list. Bears at the top of that list. Then Patriots, and then Colts. Bears. Louis, I think you were right on the money about Justin Fields as a passer. I have him on my dynasty team, and I know all about his exploits last year, and he lit the world on fire as a rusher, and set an all-time QB rushing record in one game at 170 something yards. But they really improved and built around him, and even if he improves from to an average passer, which I think it should be expected with the way they built around him, that team is going to be way better. Moving down to the Patriots. Oh, there it would be hard for them to be worse than they were on offense last year. Bill O'Brien, who is an actual offensive coach. So the offense should be better. It doesn't sound like the Mac Jones thing is going well. I heard reports about some sort of meltdown in practice. But and I think that the we want Zappy chants are going to be coming from some unruly Boston fans during the season. I think it's going to happen, and I think it's going to happen at some point. Hopefully, it's not because of injury, but I think we will see Bailey Zappi taking snaps behind center this year. Then moving on to the Colts. Yeah, Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. That sounds fun. With some zone reads and some RPOs, they got a long way to go. They say I agree. Michael Pittman is not a true wide receiver one. He's a big body and has a lot of things you look for, but he's not a Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill type that you have to game plan around. Then moving down to the Commanders, yeah, I have them as one of my bottom ranked teams in the NFL. I am a little bit higher on Sam Howell than others. With that being said, he was one of the top prospects coming out, and then his stock kind of fell. I think they actually got pretty good value on them for where they drafted him. With that being said, they're going to get beat on in that division. I don't know if they will win a divisional game, honestly. And if you're going 0-6 in your division, there's no way you're a playoff team. Honestly, I think that's been done once in NFL history. I think it was the Kansas City Chiefs years ago, back when they had Jamal Charles.
Yeah.
That year the Raiders went 6-0, but then finished the year in their division, but finished 8-8. It was such an anomaly. With that being said, the Commanders have no chance in that division, and I agree. I agree about Ron Rivera. I think he's a likable guy as a person, but I think he really benefited from having Mike Shula as his offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey as his quarterbacks coach, and Sean McDermott as his defensive coordinator, and prime Cam Newton and Greg Olson and Luke Kuechly, and so yeah, I think Ron Rivera's days as a head coach in the NFL are numbered.
Great stuff on that.
Patriots, the Boston's a very Irish city. What kind of market opportunity if we see Bailey's Irish Cream, if Bailey Zappi becomes the guy?
So
I also fun fact, I was actually there at the Bears game when Bailey Zappi got put in for Mac Jones. I was not one of the people chanting "We want Zappy," but I will say it's the most electric that place has been in quite some time.
Mhm.
So
He was
that's
fun.
pretty beat. Yeah, it was fun for 2.5 games. I mean, Western Kentucky, John. Um, but yeah, I hope for better things. I mean, that's kind of what we all hope for at this part of the season. I see some things that give me positive thinking. So okay, it's not going to be the Matt Patricia show for next year. So I'm just wiping that right out of my brain.
That's a positive.
Yeah, try to get that away from it. So
I wanted to say that I feel about Ron Rivera the same way I feel about Jordan Belfort, the guy Wolf of Wall Street is based on. Like, I'd have dinner with him, but I ain't gonna let him near my bank account. Like, Ron Rivera seems like a great guy. He ain't coaching my football team. No way.
that's going on TikTok.
Wolf of Wall
That's
Street is
perfect.
my favorite movies.
Yeah,
Sell me this pen.
that's definitely good. We're getting JC to get
Like,
that.
it's
on
entertaining.
the
I love the
thing.
press conferences. Like, the Commanders, I would always go listen to Ron Rivera's clips because they were just like, I felt bad for him. It was like, it's abuse.
He
at
stood
some
up for
point.
himself against the media. I mean, they
Yeah,
were doing their job, asking tough questions. Some of them were a little bit loaded, and yeah,
he
he's a
reminds me
guy, but
of,
football, man, it's a results driven
he's
business.
like my favorite old guy at a barber shop. Like, he just you can't look away.
All right, let's move on to
All
the
right.
next time's ticket.
We gotta look away from that segment from now. We gotta move on to Denver, Green Bay, Las Vegas, Tennessee, and Houston. I'll go quickly here. I have the Broncos 20th. They're 4 spots ahead here. Russ still going to show his age, but I think their offense is at least going to be watchable this year. That's kind of all I like. Their defense going to be good. It's going to be more low scoring games, but they're actually going to score like 2 touchdowns a game at least. They're going to be watchable on the offensive end, I think. Green Bay, I have 21 actually, right behind the Packers. Love is a relative unknown. All of the skill positions on the offense are pretty much young guys who are going to grow up with Love. So like we really don't know what Watson and Dubs are really going to contribute towards without Aaron Rodgers. I know Watson had a great game with Love towards the end of the season, but it's still relative unknown with them. Their defense is going to be good. I don't think they're going to be a bad team, so I think 25 is a little bit lower than they should be. I have the Raiders at 25. Can Jimmy stay healthy? I mean, he's played more than 6 games in 3 out of his 8 seasons of his career. Granted, the first like 2 or 3 he was backing up Brady, but as soon as he was a starter, he's only played 1 full season, I'm pretty sure. And even that he played 15 games. And if they're trying to go to a backup, I just don't think the Raiders have enough in the offensive line or on the defensive side to uphold that. Then Tennessee, I have 29th. The offensive depth is in trouble behind Burks. I don't really love their offensive line. I mean, Derrick Henry is an absolute beast, but that dude has like 4,000 carries on his eggs. Like his knees got to be those joints got to be kind of getting really thin there. Defense still has secondary issues, still has pass rush issues as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know. I think that Tannehill's in for regression. I don't think Levis is a prime ready to go prospect. So this year I'm not very high on the Titans. And then the Texans, I think the Texans are like 1 year away. I like pretty much everything they've done this offseason. I thought they've done a couple of underrated things. I think Jimmy Ward being on that secondary kind of like being a mentor. They like I think Louis, I think you've said this in one of our other shows that they kind of done a really good job of getting mentoring players in almost all of their rooms when they have a developing star there. So I think that they've done a really good job doing that. They're like right there. They're on the cusp. One more good off season, they're going to be a problem, I think. So yeah, that's my list there. So, Shane, you wanna hit this one?
Yeah, okay. So you might have to remind me if I forget a team, but I
Yeah.
will say that the Packers I have ranked 16th just because I love their roster. But the problem is, like you said, we don't know what kind of Jordan Love we're gonna get. It could be the small sample size we saw in him versus Kansas City, or the small sample size we saw of him last year. But I do love the Watson and Dobbs as his number one receivers. I like his offensive line. I like the defense. I love their head coach LaFleur. I don't. I think the only team ahead really that would get in their way really is the Lions. I think the Lions are the class of the NFC North. I can't believe I'm saying that, but right now I'm at them literally at 16th because I don't know if they're going to be good or bad. The Raiders we're talking about next. The Raiders, the only reason that they weren't ranked any lower for me is just because like I respect Jimmy Garoppolo. Even though I think he's a better fit for McDaniel's system than Derek Carr is, but I think he's a worse player. I think Derek Carr is the better quarterback between the two. I think, and obviously, he still has a solid receiving core, even though they lost Darren Waller. I can't really put much cadence in the Raiders. The Broncos, everyone talks about the addition of Sean Payton, the Hall of Fame head coach, the Hall of Fame quarterback, and Russell Wilson, but I don't really see them improving all that much just because are we not sure? Is it possible that Sean Payton and Russell Wilson are both over the hill? Is that very much possible that like we've already seen the best of them, and right now we're grasping at straws that were there in 2013 but ain't there no more. The Texans, I like them on an upward trajectory, but I had them ranked 30th just because I wasn't as high on CJ Stroud, but I love what they did when they added Dalton Schultz from the Cowboys, a good tight end. They added Shaq Mason, a great right guard for the Bucks. They got Devin Singletary, Jimmy Ward. You talked about him, and I love DeMeco Ryans as their head coach. I love it so much. I think they're a team on the rise right now. I don't see it. And who was the last team?
The Titans.
Titans. I had them as 31st. Their best players are old. I don't know. I mean, I respect the hell out of Mike Vrabel for doing what he's doing. Their best player right now is an aging Derrick Henry. Sorry, I should say Justin Simmons. Their defensive tackle is their best player. But what was once a great, really, at one point, the Titans had the best combination defensive and offensive line in the league. And it's gone downhill since then. So I ain't high on them at all.
But who you want to run through that one?
Right. So the teams are Broncos, Raiders, Texans, Titans. And Packers. And we had Packers in there. You guys all made a bunch of good points. This was the hardest part of my list to put together. Was like that lower middle part of the list. Like the bottom like 3 or 4 teams wasn't so hard, but kind of like that then like the like 6 to 8 teams above that. I feel like those were like some of the hardest to rank. Of those teams, I think I had the Packers the highest. I don't remember all. I don't have my numbers in front of me. I don't have all. But I want to say the Packers, great roster. They added Jaden Reed and Lucas Shoemaker in the draft. I think Jordan Love's gonna turn out to be a pretty good prospect, having had time to wait. Like
the Cowboys got Shoemaker. They added Croft, and they also added the kid from Morgan State,
Musgrave.
Musgrave was the one I was thinking of. You're right about that. But great history, great roster. You got to expect them to take a step back with a first year quarterback. You don't go in as a first year quarterback and light the world on fire unless for the most part. Next one, Broncos. I want to believe that they're going to be better. You made some good points, Shane. Honestly, I was listening to you. Is Sean Payton over the hill? We don't really know yet. I think he's a great offensive mind. Maybe I'm biased from listening to him on Colin Cowherd's show, but I'm interested. I'm interested to see him as a head coach, and maybe I'm also a little bit biased because I want Javonte Williams to make a strong comeback for my dynasty league. And then we got Titans Texans. I had the Titans ranked higher than the Texans, just based on like the Titans were in contention for a playoff spot last year, and I expect them to dip. I don't expect them to like stay at the spot they're at now. and the Texans were one of my bottom ranked teams, and I expect them to ascend. They made some good moves, but they're just a team that I need to see more from. And then who's the last team? The Raiders. The Raiders were kind of in that lower middle part of the pack. I didn't know specifically which slot to put them in, but I don't know. I don't really believe in what they're doing over there. I don't know what kind of identity they have. They do have Jimmy G, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfro. I liked the Michael Mayer pickup. I mean, I grew up a Notre Dame fan. Notre Dame has had a history of putting out really good tight ends. Um, in that division, I'm not a believer in them.
Yeah.
That
Lou, you wanna? Huh? Was that all of them? I
yeah, that's
think you
all.
got them all right.
Yeah.
Word. Lou,
Yeah,
you
I'm gonna
wanna
blitz
hit
these.
that?
So I also have Packers at 16. I agree with pretty much everything. Blake, I loved you pointing out Jaden Reed. I think that's a huge addition. I think he's going to be good in the league. If you watch his tape from MSU, I honestly had a pretty high grade on him, and he went a lot higher than projected. I thought that was a good pickup.
In Dynasty.
Yeah, I'm drafting him in Dynasty shares for sure. Raiders, I'm really low on. They're my 29th team, mostly because Garoppolo is not a mobile quarterback, and that line is going to get worse, I think. It's just bad. There's no ascending players on it. I don't even know if I can name a player off that line right now. I looked at it before the show too, and I just can't remember any of them.
Colton Miller.
Okay, thank you.
They drafted Alex Leatherwood in the first round, then released him like pretty much immediately. That's
history
tough
of
luck.
They're using him wrong.
Yeah,
They're
I
using him
agree.
wrong. He got hurt. It didn't work.
A history of drafting has caught up to them. And I just think Tyree Wilson felt like a luxury pick. Max Crosby's good. They need him over there. But offensive line felt like the right move there. Especially when you're putting a statue of a quarterback back there like Garoppolo is. I think he can be good. This is not going to be anything like the Niners system, though. So I expect them to regress fairly heavily. The Broncos, I have absolutely no additions to what you guys said. Shane, completely agree. I'm a big Sean Payton guy, but he played almost his entire career with Drew Brees. And I think Brees is a little bit – so Brees was 2001. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. Brees came into the league in 2001, and Peyton came into the league in 2006, I believe.
I think so. Yeah, he came in right after.
Yeah. So he played his whole career with a great and a very intelligent and lower key quarterback in Drew Brees. You've already seen the whole, we're going to get rid of Russell's office. He's not going to be up here on the second floor with the coaches. There's already this mentality clash, I think, that's going to kind of occur between him and Wilson. I think you're going to see that translate. I am honestly shocked they did not try and trade for Taysom Hill. I was almost would have put money on the fact that Peyton would have tried to bring him in. I'm not even joking. So they're my 2015. Titans.
They brought in Adam Troutman.
Yeah, but as soon as I saw that JPA football notification, I was like, it's him. And I opened it, it wasn't. Titans are my 2016. Huge concerns around an aging roster and absolutely hate that wide receiver room. Treylon Burks was injured last year. I don't think he lived up to his potential even in the games he played. And the starting roster beyond that is just abysmal.
Yeah.
Dudes that wouldn't they're picking up wide receiver 4s and 5s from other teams to plug in play in their starting lineup with Ryan Tannehill. That's not going to work. I like that they resigned Jeffrey Simmons, but I felt like maybe trade value would have been their friend there. Will he still be good when that roster is ready to compete? I don't know. Texans are my 28th team. Obviously, some bias here. I still think there's too many rookies on this roster. I think you're going to see that corrected this next year. Inexperience is really going to hurt them in close games. You saw that last year. 7 games lost by 1 score or less. Rookie head coach, rookie offensive coordinator, rookie quarterback. So there's just going to be a lot of adjustments. I think you'll see a much better team the second half of the season than you do the first half of the season. And I would judge them mostly on that once you get that experience under the belt. So they're 28 for me. Did I miss anybody?
That's it.
No, I think that's that. And then we can do these last 4 real quick and wrap it up. So it's the PFM is the Rams, the Falcons, the Cardinals, and the Bucks. So for me, the Rams are the most like I don't know charismatic team in this group. I literally said here, Stafford's health moves them up or down these three spots.
Yes.
If he's not healthy, they're the worst team in the league. If he's healthy, they could potentially move. I have them at 26. They could move up to like 20 to 18-ish, somewhere around there. I like the team around them. They've always done good with their mid-round draft picks. They had a decent draft. They had a lot of picks this year. I'm pretty sure 10 or 11. So I think they'll hit on 3 or 4 of those guys. Those will be good additions to their team. The Falcons I had at 28. I love all their skill players. London, Pitts, Bijan. Like again, they're top heavy there, but I also really like their offensive line. I like that they re-signed a lot of dudes there. I don't think it was really there. Like they were one of the best run blocking offensive lines last year for Algier, Patterson. Ritter is just the question mark for them. I still think they have work to do on defense. But I like the coach. I like a lot of what they're trying to build over there. I think they have an identity. They want to be athletic on offense and they want to be aggressive on defense and they're trying to build their secondary out. And then the Bucks and the Cardinals, like the Bucks took the lottery shot at Tom Brady. Now they spent all their money on the cruise ship. Now like the annual tax is coming on the cruise ship, and it's like, damn, we got to pay that again. I don't know if we could do that. So yeah, they're looking real. I don't know. They have Baker Mayfield. I just don't think I think they're gonna look like the Jameis Winston Tampa Bay Buccaneers again. They may not be the 30th ranked team, but I don't think their defense is gonna be as good. I don't trust their coaching staff, and I like Baker, but I don't know what he's gonna look like in this type of system with this type of coaching staff. The Cardinals are about pork this year. Who's their backup? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
Is it still Cole?
He's
Boy, I thought, yeah.
Okay.
Hard knocks.
He's starting.
No.
He's starting 6 games at minimum, possibly 8, because Kyler's knee injury happened late in the season. It was a bad one, and even when Kyler comes back, that type of injury, that type of quarterback, how much mobility is he going to have? Is he going to be able to come back and be the same type of player? I think they have culture issues. They have major defensive line issues still. They ended up getting a tackle that should help their offensive line, but he's not going to be protecting anybody for the first half of this year, really. The running back room is James Conner and Keontae Ingram. After DeAndre Hopkins, they drafted Michael Wilson for weapons. Like, you got an aging Zach Ertz and Trey McBride. Like, that might be the worst offensive skill position in the league at this point. Because I don't know what I still don't think DeAndre Hopkins is going to play on that team. So call me crazy if you think that. So Bahiki, I think we'd start with you on this one and then we'll work back.
Yeah, we'll find out about D-Hop. If he ends up if at this point he's going to have to get released, but we'll know that by June 1st. If he's on the roster on June 1st, then he's probably going to be there for the entire year, or maybe get moved at the trade deadline. But I think that go from the bottom up here. I think the Cardinals are the consensus worst team. I'll move off of them. Rams and Bucks are basically in the same scenario. They sold out for Super Bowls, and they're paying. And like you said, they're paying
shame.
Yeah, they flags fly forever. Yeah,
it's a ring. That's what matters.
Rings. Buffalo's still looking for their first one, but in something Brandon Beane was talking about in one of his press conferences is that he's never going to follow that model, basically. And there's basically his strategy is to be in contention every single year and to be a playoff team every single year, and hopefully you get one. And it's not easy to do, managing multiple max contracts with a quarterback and a wide receiver and a cornerback and this and
Edge
that.
rusher, tackle.
Yeah, and
They're all getting there now.
so if you're gonna sell, we're now seeing the repercussions of that. They got their rings, they got their championships. Now they're going to be in the gutter until they're out of until they're out of all those contracts. And then there was the Falcons. That was the other one.
Yep.
Yeah, are easily the best team of that bunch to me. I was talking. We were talking about them earlier, two or three sections ago. Yeah, they don't even belong in the same conversation as the rest of those teams in my mind.
So you wanna hit this home, and Shane, you could drive us to the parking lot, take us home.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about the Falcons again. We did earlier. I like the athleticism. I trust the coaching. They're higher for me, 22. Cardinals, my absolute worst team. I think by far the biggest question to me is how many pieces they sell at the deadline to ensure that number one overall pick. And then I think the real storyline of the season is going to be what happens to Kyler Murray. Because I think Caleb Williams is alluring to a lot of teams. And while it's easy to say, oh, like we should trade that pick for 3 first-rounders and whatever, it's so hard to like not look at a better QB prospect and a rookie contract and say, yeah, this is an easy decision. So I think that'll be a real storyline on the back half of the season. Okay, Rams and Buccaneers. I have the perfect analogy for this. I'm so glad we got to talk about them in the same group. So it's like when you get your new upgraded phone, and that first year, you're like, I'm better than all of you. But then that next year, you're stuck in your rut year, and everybody else upgrades, and you're like, oh, this sucks. Except one phone has Flappy Birds on it before it got taken off the App Store, and the other doesn't. So the Rams have Flappy Bird. They got Aaron Donald. They have Cooper Kupp. To me, they still have like quite a few good pieces. And even though they're selling, right, sent off Jalen Ramsey to the Dolphins, moved off Allen Robinson.
Floyd.
Yeah, they're moving off these guys. But I still think they have some pieces there that can really keep them in contention. And I really like Sean McVay. I think he's a top 5 coach in the league. It just honestly seems like the smartest guy in every room he's ever been in. The Buccaneers, I have some of the opposite concerns. I think everybody on their roster seems to have gotten older and a little less good, and their coaching staff just has a lot of question marks for me. I'd like to see Baker succeed. I'm a Baker believer, but I just don't know if this is the team to do it. So Buccaneers are my 31 team, and the Rams for me are 23.
Shane, take us to the promised land, and we'll.
Yeah, I think we talked to death about the Cardinals. I think there's 2 chances we see them traded. One's in training camp because that's when the agents and all that stuff are actually at training camp. They're working on the extensions for their players, working on trying to get the players out of there, or some point before the trade deadline. Because I doubt D-Hop, like Blake said, will finish the season with the Cardinals. We already touched on the Falcons. I don't want to bury a dead horse. They're 29th for me. I got to see more from Desmond Ridder. I didn't see anything really from Desmond Ridder that really like put me any kind of confidence that would say that they should be ranked above them. They have a good roster, but that only does so much. The Bucs have 28th. They have an aging roster, but they still have really good players. Baker Mayfield could be really, really good, really, really bad. We've seen the best of that. And I mean, obviously, like I didn't really want. I mean, right now Shaq Barrett's going through. Right now, he just lost his daughter. I don't wish that on anybody. But on the defense as a whole, they have playmakers, but not like a lot of consistent ballers on that side. And the Rams actually ranked 18th because of my respect for the combination of McVay and Stafford. I thought that was actually one of the better combinations we didn't see. They actually played pretty well together last year before all their best players got hurt. I like the draft into Steve Avila. He was my top-rated guard. I think that'll help keep Stafford upright. The return of Cooper Kupp, who might be the best route runner in the league, is going to help out a lot. And y'all talked about like moving off like a lot. Not I wouldn't call it dead weight, but old weight on their rosters. They want to focus more on these young guys. They progress and see what they have in them. And yeah, they're an older roster. The Bucs are an older roster, but they still have plenty of players that they could make a move. I don't know if any of those teams are really much of a threat, but the one common theme about all of them, except the Cardinals, I think, is that they could potentially be a boom or bust type of team.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all that. Consensus Cardinals, you probably got the number one overall pick. Pretty interesting thing that I will be talked about in draft circles next year. Cardinals drafted Josh Rosen year one, then got new ownership next year. Took another first round quarterback. Here we are, coming into new ownership, new leadership. Gonna take another quarterback.
Tyler
I just
contract though. Josh
huh?
Rosen. Josh Rosen, they hadn't committed to a long term contract to.
That
And
is true. That is
got
true.
got to see if someone's going to take that Kyler contract.
I mean, I could see the Falcons doing it possibly if they have a tough year. I mean, if they play themselves out of that Drake May Caleb Williams conversation. But yeah, just kind of an interesting thought to end the show here. So yeah, we did it again. We ran a little bit longer. Hopefully, I mean, I don't mind totally, but hopefully we can keep it a little bit more on schedule next time. That falls on me, the kind of operator here. But thank you for watching. We appreciate it. You can follow us here at Shane Carter TX, at Bahuki Montana, at the L Stewart 503, at Lamb 4752, and at Stadium Rant HQ. We appreciate you being here, and we hope you come in for next week. Thank you so much.
Fit down.
Like that.